Good afternoon, good evening. Not sure which part of the world our listeners are currently, but then it's evening in India and it's good afternoon to people in Kenya. Seema, welcome to the PX Chat Show. An absolute pleasure to have you part of this initiative which we are doing. I was looking forward to meet you in Nairobi personally at the second edition of the CX Transformation Summit, but then looks like the meet is happening way too sooner in the digital way. How have you been, Seema?
Such a shame. Thanks so much, Mohammed. I've been well, thank you very much. Trying to deal with this pandemic that has swept the whole world. Yeah, nice to interact with you. At least we're able to do it online, even though not physically. But amazing what technology has enabled us to do in this way. But we're all well. Kenya is chugging along, trying to deal with the pandemic, as is the rest of the world. Trying to make the most of the positives that come out of this and dealing with negatives as we go along.
Fantastic. Just to give you a quick introduction about Seema DeSouza, she is the Associate Director of Customer Experience for the NCBA Group. Without taking much time, I would request Seema to introduce herself, give a little bit insight into her experience, what she has been doing in the banking sector. Seema, it's up to you to introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you. So as you said, Mohammed, my name is Seema DeSouza. I have been working within the banking industry since 1998, doing a couple of things, ranging all the way from operations to business roles, cash management, branches, various different opportunities that I've been lucky enough to be given during my career, both with two banks within Kenya, which is CBA and NIC, and now dealing with customer experience for NCBA Group, which has emanated as a result of a merger between actually both my ex-employers, which is CBA and NIC. So lucky for me, I've had a view into both banks and know how both banks work very well. So considering its customer experience, it's been a lot easier for me to transition into this new organization. But very challenging, having said that, at the same time, a merger of two large banks is not easy to handle. And transitioning customers from what they were used to NCBA is also no little feat. It's no joke, but it's been a huge learning curve. Great positives out of this, making the most of what it is that we can take from both unique organizations, trying to build something that to me is pretty amazing. So in a nutshell, been working within the banking space and finally culminating within customer experience. So that's where I'm based. That's where my expertise lies at the moment.
Fantastic. Seema, before the merger happened between CBA and NIC, we were talking about two different set of customers and set of people. After the merger, yeah. I'm sure the expectation from a customer standpoint would have been at a different level. What they're looking forward from a merger from a larger banking group as total. Now, with the ongoing COVID-19 situation, what has the perception? How has perceptions of customers changed towards customer experience?
Yeah. So at the moment, we're dealing with two challenges. Obviously, like I've just mentioned, we're coming out of a merger. We literally just merged on the 1st of October last year. And so therefore, as you can understand, the first 2 years post-merger is quite tricky in itself. And so we were dealing with, all of the nuances that come with the merger. And then, come March, we now get into the territory of this whole pandemic that has taken us quite a surprise. And CX honestly has completely transformed. So, if I was talking to the actual impact of COVID-19, I would probably split my responses into two and speak to how it's affected internal customers and external customers. The reason I start off with internal customers because they're actually the ones that make and break our organization. And what I think a lot of us forget to realize is that they're just as much going through this as our customers are. And so therefore it's important to just be cognizant of what changes they're experiencing and how it is that we're able to support them better so that they're able to support customers better. So, our staff members have been dealing with things like shifts, some going on leave due to reduced headcount. As we're operating lean shifts during this period, they've been affected by things like the curfew. Some staff members have been working from home. So, you have a whole huge set of technological challenges that then come into play. Obviously, they also have been exposed to additional hygiene. Frontliners are now or have been exposed to new processes as a result of the changes impacting customers. So they're all learning as well, and now also learning through new channels. So online learning is now the order of the day, and so it's been quite difficult for them to transition into it. But we've had a great team actually at NCBA that have really picked this up and taken on board all of the different changes. The other change that they've also really been quite instrumental in driving is helping our customers through the situation, and especially trying to get them onto digital platforms. Our digital penetration, luckily for mobile banking, was pretty high anyway. But when it comes to online and corporate online, remember, we're also coming out of a merger. And so we're coming with two different mobile and online platforms that we are still working to migrate into one unified platform once our core banking systems consolidate. So, we were in the middle of that, and now we're trying to ensure that we can get customers onto that platforms, and we will be dealing with, further challenges later along the line as we now finally consolidate our core banking systems. But they've really, pushed. That's what we've been doing, is just push people, get them onto the channels during this time. And so, that's been the additional challenge. But if I was then to just talk about the external customer, the external customer has really seen transformation. I mean, it has been no easy feat for our customers. I think there's some positives that have come out of it and also some negatives. So if I was to talk about some of the adverse impacts that obviously they've felt, is primarily as a result of government directive, and not only government directive, but when you talk about a responsible organization that wants to minimize the spread of coronavirus, there are very many things that we've implemented within our spaces so that we prevent the spread of the virus. So physically, in all of our touch points, you'll find that there is an additional few steps that a customer has to take in order to actually access us. Usual sanitizers, masks, gloves. The front line actually is now no longer available, just face to face, but behind counters. Customer experience has been moved behind counters. And, this is in no way to make us seem more unhuman, if I may call it that, but it is a situation that we're dealing with. And we also have to protect our teams and customers at the same time. So that's the biggest change, I think, for them, is that whole operational change, reduced hours due to our curfew. We have a curfew in place in our country at the moment, so we've had to scale back our hours. We've also had to cut back on some of the branches that are co-located or right next to each other. So you'll find that, over the last month, we've had to shut 8 branches, just because also the foot flow has been pretty low in some of these places. And then now the shift to digital. I mean, the shift to digital for customers has been the biggest move out of this. Our signups have really been on an incline since March, when our whole drive started. In partnership with the government has also been working with MNOs to try and drive the cost of transactions down. So you'll find all of our mobile money transfers are actually free now. So we're also, they're also trying to help us encourage cashless transactions and a cashless economy during this time. The other things that I would say have impacted customers are the amount of communication that has flooded customers. Because everything is changing, we must communicate to our customers all of these things, and therefore they've just been bombarded. Hopefully we try to do it with the most sensitivity as we possibly can, but we do need to communicate to customers. The other positive thing, though, out of this, in terms of the communication aspect, is the creativity of organizations to engage their customers digitally. So ordinarily, we would just communicate, like I've said, this process has changed, we're closing these hours, etc. But now organizations are trying to engage their customers digitally through talking about additional things that affect an individual right now. For example, tips for working from home, what are the different activities you can do with your children, just things that actually touch on a person. So I've seen a lot of, fun social gaming that has come out of this. And organizations embracing this whole digital drive to try and see what it is that we can do differently with customers during this time. The other thing that I think that customers are getting a huge benefit from is the change or redesign of processes. Sometimes what people say is that it takes a crisis this large to actually drive change. And within our organization, you know how customer experience is always fighting with everybody to try and make sure that the customer benefits and, the processes are simple, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, all of a sudden, we've just done this and everything is possible. Everything that was not possible is now possible. You can scan instructions, or you can just opt in through an SMS, or, steps that were 10 are now 2 steps. And I think in terms of the benefit that customers are getting from this, that is one thing that I really hope, and I know for NCBA we will, is just take through even after coronavirus, so that the way that we serve our customers completely changes after this. So it's just the entire arena actually for customers that has changed. Completely, customer experience was drastically changed. Positives, negatives, we see what comes after coronavirus.
No, but just to give you've given a very brief insight of what's been happening within NCBA, and and especially after the merger. So, a few things. 2 different banking groups coming together, that itself is a huge challenge. You are in the midst of bringing everyone together, the customers, the staff members, and then COVID-19 strikes, everyone. So that's a huge blow to your ongoing process. But then, the kind of insights you have been sharing, digital penetration, digital sign-up has been increasing from the customer standpoint, which is very, very encouraging at this kind of times. Communication has been very effective on these engaging customers. Now, what has been the feedback from the customers on these things? Now, do you think these are going to be the foundation for a different CX strategy post COVID-19, Seema?
Yeah, so customers have been very forgiving. I must give a shout out to our customers. They really have been very committed and loyal to NCBA and the steps that we've been taking to carry them on this journey with us. It's very rare to get complaints about introduction of processes or trying to migrate customers to digital because of what is happening right now. And I think what's important is the manner in which they have been communicated too, is that all of these steps we're taking is for the customer actually. There's no one else that we are doing this for. And so our customers have really been quite supportive during this migration. Feedback obviously comes in around the different channels that you put customers on. And again, like you said, we're still migrating. We're still moving customers from 2 different distinct channels into 1 channel. And that in itself poses problems. And so in terms of a different digital strategy after coronavirus, I think our digital strategy in itself, first of all, needs to be deployed as NCBA. After the merger, we need to get people onto our unified platform as NCBA. But the lessons learned through this pandemic definitely are the ones that will actually be built onto this new digital strategy. When we talk about omnichannel experiences is what we had actually designed for. And it has to be a fundamental part of the digital strategy. You can't have one without the other. You can't design digital without having that omnichannel end in mind. But some of the things that I think that we really need to think about as we deploy our digital strategy is things like agility. So one of the things that COVID-19 has showed us is you need to have the ability to respond and react really quickly, whether it is through technological redesign architecture that supports the system and how it is that you can execute in terms of for the customer. Processes, simple process design, user experience, and the journey as a customer goes through the transactions should be very quick for organizations to amend as they go along. So I think that will now become a very fundamental part of the strategy, our ability to respond and react. The other thing that I think is quite critical in designing this strategy is our BCP really needs to be very effective. Coronavirus has completely tested our BCP to the maximum. We need to have plans in place for everything to go wrong, and we need to constantly test them. We need to constantly renew, review, etc. So BCPs really need to be reviewed. The other thing that I'd like to talk about is data. And I think data is one of the things that will really define our new CX strategy going forward. When we talk about some of the changes post-COVID, some of the things that we could come out with, a lot of the areas within CX could be supported by things like artificial intelligence, chatbots, things like that, which will enable us to engage with our customers through a different medium. How it is that we then are able to ensure that personal touch still remains is through data. I mean, data is basically what will convert AI into extremely personal interactions, and therefore a good, strong data strategy is really critical. And again, out of coronavirus, it's been a struggle trying to personalize as much as you possibly can if you don't have a clean data set. And again, remember, Mohammed, we're coming from bank 1 and bank 2. And so as it is, we're migrating our data together. And so I think for me, data really is one of the things that we'll need to have a very strong, robust foundation within NCBA in order for us to have a strong CX and strong digital engagement strategy with our customers. So, I mean, those are the things that I would think about, looking at being agile, using AI very well, using the new forms of conversation with customers, ensure that our strategy is very balanced, where you're balancing digital and physical, because customers still want that physical interaction, even post-corona. We really need to be there for our customers. And there was a survey by PwC that actually said that 75% of our customers want face-to-face interactions. And so therefore, it would be really important as we craft our strategy that we're crafting it for physical and for digital, and for that to work extremely seamlessly. And so that's where data then brings everything together. Yeah.
Awesome. Now, just to sum up a few of the points which you discussed, Seema, a few things. One thing which I really liked it is the agility part, the ability to respond and react in a very, very quick space. I think that is something which many of us are missing at this current juncture. Of course, COVID-19 is a reason to be blamed, but even prior to COVID-19, it's a question which probably organization needs to ask themselves, whether they were able to respond and react in the short turnaround time. That's something which probably organization needs to reflect. Now, you're talking about a few things about the face-to-face interaction, which probably 75% of them are still looking forward. An interesting conversation which I had with Hussein Dajani, who is the digital general manager for digital and CX for Nissan Motor Corp. He's responsible for Middle East, Africa, Turkey, and India, almost 84 countries. Now, what he said was a very interesting fact. Within a short span of 7 days, they were able to deploy a new technology to have face-to-face interaction with prospects, customers, to schedule sales calls, to schedule service requests. So the entire coming into the branch, coming into the showroom has been replaced with face-to-face kind of a thing. So that's something, a great transformation, a project which might take 6 months or maybe even a year, took them 7 days to implement. And they have already started doing it in UAE and few countries in GCC countries. So that's something which probably could be an example if you want to enforce something, there's always a way which you could look into it.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's redefining strategies actually, and like you said, we're talking here, having an interview like this, whereas before we wouldn't have even thought of this as a norm, but it's actually a norm of our life. And one of the wins, if I was to talk about NCBA, is how quickly we've managed to get people working from home. I mean, 60% of our organization is working from home at the moment. And hands off to the tech team for setting people up so quickly so that we're able to engage like this, have our meetings done online, have our customer meetings scheduled face-to-face and so forth. So many options have become available so quickly. And usually those would be the ones that would be, the 6-month projects. Oh, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. And actually what it takes is that quick decision to be made, and you just snowball into this amazing new way of working. So like I said, it's just changes like this or real crisis like this that can actually drive change.
So do you think this is going to be the new norm of working post COVID-19, Seema?
You know what, I honestly am completely hooked up from home. I think the last time I went to the office was 2 weeks ago. I go in once a week to check on the team. And this last week we had a public holiday, so I didn't go in. But everything that you do face-to-face, you can do virtually. However, there are some things that I do feel you cannot replace virtual with face-to-face. But in terms of defining what our new employee value proposition could be, I mean, because this really helps redefine it, is working from home, agile working, flexi working has now been proven just out of this crisis. And therefore we can come out of this and actually have a 2 to 3 day working from home week very comfortably. It's actually a reality. And this is what I really hope that some of us will take forward out of this and we don't go back to normal.
Great. Post COVID-19, what do you think is going to be the balance that the CX leaders need to have between their digital strategy and their, be it, the face-to-face or the other ways? Where do you think that balance needs to be, Seema?
Yeah, I mean, that question is difficult to answer. I think it varies based on organization to organization. Each organization has a very unique strategy, and I think that's where it starts from. There's some organizations that are very happy and content being very digitally driven. For example, even within NCBA, we have NCBA, which is like, the main business, and we have a digital side of the business. And the digital side of the business is primarily run through a product called Loop, and then there's a product called Mshwari. Mshwari is entirely digitally driven, and Loop also is a digital bank on your phone. And therefore, for that particular strategy, those channels work extremely well. For the rest of the traditional bank, which is then now taking care of the needs of the more traditional customer, where they require that face-to-face connection in addition to the tools that can help them be more efficient in the way that they bank. That's where we need to look at how it is that we're going to create this digital strategy and balance it with the omnichannel experience. How is it going to be most efficient for that particular segment of customers? And I think in designing this digital strategy vis-a-vis the omnichannel experience, it's about looking and focusing at what is the right channel for that particular segment of customers. I think taking a blanket approach may not be the right approach. Like I said, we have one side of the business that works perfectly well digitally and is not engaged physically. It's only engaged through a contact center and through the mobile phone. But it's about knowing what channels to focus on for the particular segment of customers that you're engaging with. And so even for us, as we come out of this and the digital footprint that had already been laid out, there is a unique strategy for each particular segment of customers and how we will engage them. But essentially, the fundamental of omnichannel will apply across the board. It's just how it is that you engage through those channels, and which channel will be more prevalent for which segment is what will then differ. So, and in all of those, I think, fundamentally, the main principle that we will take forward in our digital strategy is simplicity. We've done a lot of work to try and declutter, if I can use that word. I'm not a techie, but I can use that word quite comfortably. Is declutter the number of layers and processes that you go through to transact. Can the transaction be done in 2 steps? And we're really trying to simplify how our customers interact with us. And so in designing that whole omni-channel experience, it's just about maintaining simplicity through every single channel that a customer would then interact with us. So simplicity forms a core foundation for our digital strategy. And we hope it works. I mean, like I said, it hasn't come to fruition yet. It's on the way. And I'm really excited to see how it then crystallizes into something that will take the organization forward into what we call, what we're calling at NCBA a very phygital. It's a new term that we have kind of crafted, a phygital strategy, because we do believe physical is just as important as digital, but the magic happens when you blend the two together. So our strategy is fully phygital. Yeah.
I like that term, phygital. I hope that becomes the new norm.
New norm, I know, that would be really nice. Yeah.
That would be very nice.
We should trademark it. Yeah.
Probably you should.
Yeah.
You should. I mean, I think you've given a lot of insights over here. It's really absolutely wonderful speaking with you, Seema. Before we end this conversation, what would be your 2 pieces of advice or 2 pointers to your fellow colleagues, peers from other markets? You yourself are responsible for quite a number of markets within NCBA Group. So what would be your 2 pieces of advice for them, for your peers from other regions, from probably other banks?
Yeah. Okay. So, and this will be specific to this current environment that we're in, and COVID-19, and navigating CX within this time. And I think, essentially to my peers out there, the 2 things that I would then speak about is, the first thing is being empathetic towards customers. I think understanding what it is that they're going through right now will differentiate you from the rest. I think we really need to be in their shoes and understand. We are in their shoes, actually, essentially. We are customers ourselves. And I think if we are able to kind of understand from our own heart and spirit what it is that we're going through, that's then when we can be very effective in responding to what it is that they go through, even from whether it's banking, through MNOs, whatever industry you're in. So basically positioning your strategy, or, amending your strategy, just to be very cognizant of what it is that's happening right now. The second thing that I would say is use this opportunity. I think that this is an extremely valuable moment in life and time. And there's so many things that we can take advantage of right now to come out of this a lot stronger and a lot more customer focused. Because crisis has put us into the shoes of our customer. We now understand a lot better. We have an opportunity, and we have kind of some form of, let me not call it laxity, but a lot more understanding from the people who would usually be the naysayers of all of the positive things that we would like to do for customers. So really use this situation to craft out a very simplistic way of serving your customers, simplistic and empathetic way of serving your customers, and implement very quickly right now, and come out with those gains after this. Don't go back. There's no going back to that normal, because there has to be a new normal out of this. And so just be brave about making sure that you carry through to post-COVID with the new normal. Yeah.
Brilliant. Just to give a quick sum up, being empathetic, I think that's a part of any CX leader's basic textbook rule number 1. Be empathetic to your customers. Understand what their requirements are. Understand what the current crisis and their requirements are, and probably third, implement, like you said, technologies which can be more adaptive to the current crisis and going forward as well. I think that sums up the whole conversation, what we are trying to have, and share it with other peers, other people out there, and use this platform is what we are looking to do. It was absolute pleasure having you, Seema. I truly look forward to meet you in July, but it looks like that's going to be not happening in
Yeah, I'm
2020.
not sure.
Not sure in 2020, but definitely 2021, inshallah, we will be there.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you so much, Mohammed.
Absolute pleasure was mine. Thank you, Seema.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.